after the pound hit that all-time low yesterday following the Chancellor's tax cuts announced on Friday. This morning, things have steadied. The pound trading at 1.08 against the US dollar.
Someone who's been following recent developments closely is former Chief Secretary to the Treasury, former Conservative MP David Gauke. David joins us now. You had a piece in Conservative Home, the internal newspaper, a day or so ago, in which you said this was both economically risky but also politically risky. Can you explain that to us?
Well, yeah, so the political risk is by announcing a reduction in the top rate of income tax at a time in which the country is facing very significant difficulties, a cost of living crisis. That will strike, I think, most people as the wrong priority. And economically, it was a risk because it was already the case that the markets were nervous about the fiscal policy, the tax and spend policy of the government. They feared that we were borrowing too much. And then they've gone ahead and not only announced a series of tax cuts that were largely expected, but also some additional tax cuts. And that, not surprisingly, has caused concern in the markets. And I'm afraid it was entirely predictable. Plenty of people were saying this could happen, and the government has now found itself in this particular mess with interest rates rising and the pound falling.
It's one thing to have borrowing go up in a recession, borrowing to go up in a pandemic temporarily. The thing which is very striking on Friday was that the Chancellor's plans imply national debt. I was saying it's one thing to have some more borrowing in a recession or in a pandemic. The striking thing on Friday was the Chancellor's plans, according to independent experts, imply national debt rising year after year after year into the future. I can't remember a time when a government set out an economic fiscal plan like that. Can you?
No, I can't. And yes, you're right. There are circumstances where it is right and necessary to borrow more. And in terms of a large part of this comes from the temporary energy price freeze, and I think that's the right type of policy to pursue. It's right to respond to that. But then to sort of set out these plans and somehow hope that growth is going to solve your problem, I'm afraid lacked credibility, and that was the view that the markets took. And that's why we're in the position that it is. And I'm afraid it was an irresponsible act by the Chancellor on Friday.
This is going to be a surprise to people because you, of course, are a former Conservative Treasury Minister, and I wonder how many Conservatives feel the way you do, particularly those who are currently on the back benches, some of whom might have warned in the leadership contests that there might be a problem with Liz Truss's economic plans. And would that mean that these plans get voted down by the government's own party?
It's a very good question. I mean, first of all, you are absolutely right to say that Rishi Sunak in the leadership campaign warned of precisely this, and that lots of Conservative MPs strongly agreed with him. And, by and large, the Conservative Party has traditionally stood for sound money, of being cautious with the public finances. Now, when it comes to votes on this, I mean, it's quite a thing to vote against a government tax cut. And whether there would be much of a rebellion, I don't know. But I don't think we know what the circumstances are going to be when we get to those votes. And there are certainly Conservative MPs who are very anxious about the policy. And if it felt that abandoning some of those tax cuts helped reassure the markets, helped give the UK greater credibility, and helped to ensure that interest rates don't have to rise as much as they otherwise would do, there clearly is a case for dumping those policies, and whether the government does so voluntarily or because of a backbench rebellion remains to be seen.
All right, David Gauke, good to talk to you this morning. Former Conservative Treasury Minister. Thank you, good to speak to you. In the slot, of course, where we would normally expect a Conservative minister.
I know. We asked the Treasury for a minister. They didn't put anybody up. I have to say, David Gauke and I have disagreed on economic policy lots and lots of times, but it's quite an achievement to make us in 100% agreement, and that's what they've managed. So there we are.